This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vossoughi and Mykie Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mykie Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vossoughi, and we're so thrilled to be back with you for another episode, one that I am so excited about because I love this topic, how to lock in momentum and never lose it again. Arash, I love this topic so much because nothing feels better than momentum towards your goal. So let's jump right in. How do you create momentum?
I love the word momentum, number one. I was telling you before we were doing this, I said, nothing feels better than when you're in momentum. You're in that flow state.
Yes.
But Mike, can you relate to this? Have you ever had days or weeks where whatever you touch turns to gold, where you're absolutely dialed in, you're waking up early, but as soon as you wake up, you're on fire. You're executing, you're unstoppable. And then you miss a day. You start getting distracted. Your kids may have something doesn't happen the way you want in your business or in your work or in your life, and suddenly you're off track. But the truth is, momentum is something we earn by our thinking. And momentum doesn't have to come and go. You could lock it in to make it a part of your identity. It will be your expectation and it becomes your new normal. But what we need to do today is let's give everybody the exact step-by-step framework on how to create momentum so they can always go back to it.
Let's do it.
All right, so what is momentum? Momentum is this feeling where we're just being, we're not overthinking. Momentum is really this energy, it's a juice. Kind of like the analogy I gave that whatever you touch turns into gold, where your expectation is on fire. Momentum is not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Momentum is built on identity. It's built on the standards we create. You know, if you look at winners don't rely on emotions. They rely on decisions, standards, and processes. You don't need to feel like it to be consistent. You want to install a standard that makes momentum automatic for yourself. So look at it like this, and tell me if you can align with this. Momentum is the engine that runs our identity. So think about our identity when we're operating at the true essence of who we are. We're not chasing, we're not grinding. It's just who we are. And everyone has experienced it.
Yep.
But let's look at what kills momentum. Letting the results control you, lack of clarity where you're not committed to a goal, where you're overthinking and you slow down and stop because you're unsure of what your next move is. The type of circle you're in, so you're in inconsistent environments, some with high standards, some with low standards. And then emotional decision making. These are what kills momentum. Instead of making decisions from your goal, you're doing it from what you want now instead of what you want most.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, people create momentum and then they take their foot off the gas. What causes that?
Well, now they're not focused on creating momentum. They're coming from the outside. So the result is telling them, I better hesitate. I better play it safe. Or the idea that really kills momentum is, what if this doesn't last? How long is this going to last? Everyone has experienced momentum in their life in some area, in a relationship, in sales, in a business. But what we want to do is understand how to lock in momentum and never lose it again. That's what we want to do right now. So what's the first step? The first step is that you decide on your standard that is going to be in harmony with momentum, where you stop chasing success, you stop chasing your goals, but you start living your standards. And here's a great question to ask ourselves first. Who is a version of you that earns 7 figures plus? If you're earning 7, ask, who is a version of you who earns 8 figures? That version of you is living with certainty and operates at a high level. And then what we want to do is we want to define our non-negotiables. What are my non-negotiable? In my example of somebody who's 6 figures wants to earn 7, what are those non-negotiable? Is it your morning routine? Is it a non-negotiable work ethic where I'm going to just focus on making every decision from the person who achieved my goal, and then I'm going to follow through? So these are really great questions to start with.
You know, Raj, I think sometimes we get this idea that creating momentum, or if we lose momentum, it's going to take a lot of time or a lot of effort. Does it have to be that way?
Well, when you're in momentum, you're actually using less effort because you built the right standards and the identity to match that, where it would be harder for you not to do than to do it. See, what we've got to understand, habits alone won't cut it. You need processes. Processes always create our results by default. So what are the processes? Your morning routine, your accountability check-ins. And if you've been following our podcast, I've given you several. I think one of the best accountability check-ins is have an alarm on your phone at 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, where at 1 o'clock the alarm goes off, and then you ask yourself, what are the thoughts I've been thinking so far today? What are the feelings I've been feeling? And what are the actions that I've been taking? Because the answer to those are the most truest assessment of a vote for the person we're becoming. And so when you are constantly in great proximity too, that's another checklist for yourself, another process, because iron sharpens iron. So when you're in these different cues that you use for yourself, you're really anchoring momentum for yourself.
What are your thoughts around creating great momentum in one area of your life, but not the other?
Well, I would focus on creating it in the area that you want to upgrade the most, and it's going to impact the other area, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And if you think that's not true, I promise you it is. But we have a certain attitude to different areas in our life. So we could create really amazing momentum because we have a great attitude towards that area. Then the other area, we don't have the same attitude. We don't have the same relationship. But momentum, really, if you track yourself, you're going to create momentum so quick. Track your wins. Track how many days in a row you've done your morning routine. Track how many days in a row that you have finished what you've started. Anything that shows that you're moving forward is going to create more momentum. When your mind sees progress, it wants to protect it. It's like a drug. It's addicted to this feeling of it. And so that's what we want to do.
So you brought up earlier some of the false beliefs or ideas that we may have that kill our momentum. Things like, what if this doesn't last? Or what if I can't sustain this? What do we do to counter those thoughts when they pop in?
We need to reject them right away. And we want to start building our identity around the person we want to become. So instead of saying, I need to do this, you just shift your language. It says, I'm the kind of person who does this, because action always follows identity. You got to burn that in your mind. Action will always follow your strongest identity. Every time you act in alignment, your identity just locks in so tight. Think about things that you do right now that you have so much momentum in. That's because you have a great identity towards that area. But when your identity and your habits match, momentum becomes permanent. That's why identity is so important. But you can't create identity without standards. You got to create the standards first. The standard creates the story creates the identity creates the result.
So if I'm following correctly, you kind of build yourself in with the processes, right? You kind of like bulletproof yourself with these processes, the standard and the identity, and then you upgrade your thinking to make sure that you stay on track.
We want to always upgrade our thinking. Every day we want to think 1% better, 1% more accurate. I don't believe in positive or negative thinking, even though we know negative thinking doesn't work. I call it accurate thinking. Accurate thinking is thinking in harmony with your goal. Now, nobody loses momentum because they're weak. They just never anchored what created the momentum. You lose it because you never anchored it, so you never built it with the right structure. You never asked yourself what you did. You relied on energy not identity. Emotion, not the environment you created. But I want to change this myth today, and I want to give you the right framework. What is the framework? You decide on your standard, you anchor your one habit that is so essential for you to achieve your goal, that pinnacle habit. You start tracking your wins, you put an alarm on your phone, and you lock in to the identity of the person you're becoming. Momentum is something you will never chase. It's always something you install because you have to earn it by your thinking. Now, I want everybody to think about this because I've been on both ends. I've created great momentum and I've created great slumps, in my life. So I can relate to this more than anybody. But when you are in that momentum, this is what I want you to do. I want you to stop for a moment and say, how have I been thinking? How have I been being? And say, I never want to forget that. And literally jot down where your emotional state is. Success has to be hardwired if you want to create permanent momentum. That's why identity is so important. But what if you lived a life where momentum was all you knew? But if you use the framework that I've given you by building the standards, anchor your habits, act like the type of person you want to become. We did a great podcast on decision making. So you make only decisions aligned with your quantum leap. And you always want to be hungry and humble. Always hungry and humble. And when you do that, you are not just going to get what you want, you're going to get who you are. And that's why momentum is so valuable.
This is a little bit of a tedious question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. When you're focusing or teaching others or coaching others to create momentum, are you focusing both the small decisions and the big picture, or is it more one than the other? So what I mean by that is, are you having someone accept the idea that they are someone who operates with momentum and build that into their identity? And maybe that's part of their auto suggestion and really having them image that. Or is it really more process-based, like just do the small things and it will lead to the result you want?
Well, it's kind of both. What I tell them, I want you to imagine that success was guaranteed. It was automatic. And if you live with that assumption, you would never be thinking, what if it doesn't work? That's the assumption I want you to live with. And then I want you to tidy up yourself and really get good with the details, like the tiny details, because it's the little things compounded over time that create the big results. Details, like I always love this quote, the devil's in the details. And that's just where it is. Like where you're most detail oriented, not in your head, but you just know, like, this means so much to me. That's where momentum is going to follow.
Okay, I love the way you just said tidy yourself up, and I'm going to steal that because that might be my favorite phrase now. Tidy yourself up with the details. And I think that's so perfect because it's the little details that create the big results. So just keeping an eye on the prize, which I think goes back to what you said too, keeping track of the wins, which sometimes we create these wins, even if they're small wins every single day, pay no attention to them, don't acknowledge them, and then don't even realize that we are creating momentum.
Well, that's what's important. A lot of people will keep track of the losses, but they don't keep track of the wins. So what do? Whatever we focus on expands or grows. So if we keep track of the losses, we're going to be in momentum to keep attracting more losses. To really create success effortlessly, which I have dedicated my life to showing people how to do, all comes down to a few things: winning habits, winning processes, winning attitudes. That's what creates a winning identity. You're never going to create a winning identity without winning processes. And what I want people to do is understand you can have anything you want. This isn't just wishy-washy, me being super optimistic. It is an absolute fact. But you want to make sure that this is the turning point of your life right now. And it's only going to keep getting better, but you have to build the right standards. You have to anchor the right habits, and you have to have the right expectation.
I really want to anchor in the importance of this episode. And we talked about how good momentum feels, but why does it feel good? It feels good because you're moving forward towards your goals at a rapid pace. You're multiplying your results. in a shorter period of time. And why is that important whenever you're going after a really big goal?
Well, I actually think why it feels good. I'm going to clean it up a little bit to make it even more simple for people. Why it feels good, because we're not overthinking, we're just being. We are trusting our instinct, and our instinct is 10 times more powerful than our intellect. So I want everybody to think of a time in their life when they were in momentum. Like whatever they do, it just takes off. I was just on a golf trip. I had the most amazing golf trip with some of the closest people in my life. And I always think golf is life. And if you're going and trying to hit a golf ball, you're screwed. But if you just let go and hit your swing, everything works. That's life. So what keeps us from momentum is we're too much in our head, not into our heart. We're not trusting our instinct. So I think it's a great analogy, even if you don't play golf. Like there's a time that you've overthought something, and that's when it was disastrous. And so we want to be free in our mind. We want our mind quiet. When our mind is quiet, then the essence of who we really are comes out. But anytime we've been in momentum, it's because we've been in the essence of who we are. We're not planning a plan. We're just being, we're doing it now. And we're so detached and divorced from the outcome.
Yes. And on that same note, when we're in momentum, we're not forcing anything. It's just flowing.
It's just flowing. Everyone's experienced it though.
Yeah.
But momentum is something you earn. It's not something that is given. You've earned it even if you did it unconsciously. You still earned it. But I want to teach you how to do it consciously. That's why I want you to create the proper standards, anchor your identity, and really commit to doing your processes.
Arash, this entire episode covered a framework for locking in momentum. Do you also want to give an action step for this week?
Yeah. So look at what you want the most, that you wish you had, like whatever you touch turned to gold in this area. And I want you to assume that it can be nothing but that. That's number one. I want you to come with that assumption that whatever you touch is automatic. It literally turns to gold. Then I want you to write out your top standard. Make it simple. Just do one. This is the standard I'm going to live with. Maybe it's doing it now. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to act. I'm going to make the move before I'm ready. And then let's talk about write out your number one habit. Just one habit. And I want you to be so free flowing throughout your days. And just get out of your head and just be. That's what creates momentum. And that's what I want everyone to do.
Fantastic. Arash, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review. And most importantly, share this with your friends and family and on your social media so more people can be listening to the 7-Figure Standard podcast. Arash, thank you. And we'll see you next week on another episode.
Thanks, Mykie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mykie and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.